All right, so we'll start. My name is Janice Jang, and welcome to the first Eclectics of the semester. We're so excited. I have the privilege of introducing today's speakers, Gary Pollitt and Lynn Hanke. Gary has been teaching freshman comp in the English department at Cal State Fullerton for the last 24 years. For the last 10 years, he's been working on a book on conflict management with his sister, Lynn, who is now a retired elementary school principal. They both love using pattern recognition as a means of teaching, learning, and understanding. They have applied their pattern recognition skills and ability to break things down to writing their book entitled Measured Response, which they just finished last month. There we go. Gary has a copy. Okay. So I'm going to ask again to please mute your microphones and turn your cameras off, which allows us to have the best presentation quality. Thank you very much. I'll turn this over now to Gary.
Welcome. Thank you, Janice, for having us. This is Measured Response, Managing Conflict with Awareness and Choice. Okay, we broke our presentation down in two parts. I'm going to talk about awareness and Lynn's going to talk about choice. So one of the things when we present a lot, people will say, what are you guys doing? A measured response, what is that? So I tried to break it down. We tried to break it down in a nutshell. It's an efficient system for improving your conflict management skills. And what it's going to consist of, you're going to familiarize yourself with a few relevant patterns. That's the key, just a few. They just need a few and they need to be relevant. You use those patterns as scaffolding to build your awareness by connecting the concepts with the actual behavior. And then that just means we're going to show you some patterns today. Just when you're out in the world living your life, you're going to go, oh yeah, there's that pattern that Lynn and Gary were talking about. So if we've done our job right and identified the relevant patterns, you should be seeing them all the time. And like I say, all you're doing is connecting. And what that's going to do is it's going to increase your awareness, and that's going to inform your decision making. One of the things with what we're doing is we never tell people, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. What we say is you need to build your awareness, and then that awareness is going to inform your decision making in the moment. That's the key. If you know what's going on, you're going to make better decisions. And what we really like about what we're doing is it's a low cost in relationship to a payoff. Anytime someone's got a system and they go, well, we got this thing that we want you to do. Like a lot of times at work, they'll come in with these things that they want you to do. And you're like, well, it's more work and it's not really going to help me do my job. Your nervous system hates that. This is the opposite. It's just a low cost, but with a big payoff. Your nervous system loves that. Okay. So we're both teachers, and people will say, how did you guys end up writing a book about conflict? And I want to say it started about 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. The time is moving so fast now, it's all a blur. Our conflict management style as educator was, if we would just be fair and competent, we would eliminate conflict. And that actually is a good thing. If you're a teacher, you want to be fair and competent. That's great. It's going to make you do the job well. But sometimes we would be fair and competent, and that didn't work at all. We would be engaging with people and they would be losing their minds. And we would be kind of stunned because we're like, hey, I'm being fair with you and I'm being competent, but you're still acting like I've done something wrong. And we both, I remember we were talking, we were by Lynn's house and we're walking outside and we had this sense of going, yeah, we need to do something. So we just started studying conflict. And we didn't know what we were doing. We were just looking around. Like the first one I really noticed was the dog whisperer, Cesar Millan. And it was behavior and pattern recognition. I'm like, how does he know all these patterns? And so we started reading. We were observing in our daily life and analyzing. And then we were just talking to each other. Like one of the things we did in the last 10 years is we did a lot of talking. These ideas, we just talk them out, talk them out, talk them out. Then we actually started writing stuff down. We were externalizing our thinking. And then we actually started presenting. So one of the things that people would say to us at the presentation is go, hey, do you guys have a book? And then we looked at everything we had right there and we're like, oh my God, we do have a book. And that was probably about 4 years into the project. And we're like, okay, we'll write a book. And I remember looking at all those papers on the desk at Lynn, on the table at Lynn's house going, this book's going to write itself. And I thought, I go, this is going to be the easiest book ever. I thought at the most it would be a year, but it ended up being 6 years. And one of the things I would say about going from doing research versus to actually writing a book, it's like going from casual dating to getting married, having 5 kids, having your in-laws move in with you, doing a kitchen remodel, getting a dog with a skin allergy. The level of commitment of writing the book was insane. Like it was like, if we knew how hard it was going to be, we probably, wouldn't have been so willing. So one of the things of writing the book is it forces you to clarify your ideas and identify your patterns. So the process of writing the book really means well, we can go and present you with patterns today that are like very high value targets. So one of the first patterns that we noticed that was like, oh, that's a big deal, came from when Lynn was talking about her work. Like, and this is when we were like, oh my God, this is a pattern. It's got to go in the book. Lynn, you want to tell them the little story of your pattern?
We had been coming up with ideas and strategies for dealing with conflict. And I can remember this day so clearly, someone coming into the front office and she was hot. She was mad. She came in super aggressive and I worked with her a little bit and it became clear, yeah, there was a problem, but her interpretation was not correct. And I saw her have that realization and I thought, oh, good, she's going to calm down and we're going to solve this problem. And she looked at me and she just left. And I thought, oh, some people can use fight and flight in a conflict situation. And some of us can use neither. And that was a huge pattern for us.
So that was our big realization. And I remember thinking about that going, well, we need to study fight or flight because I didn't really know, like you knew what fight or flight is kind of generally. So I started studying fight or flight, and fight or flight was like Walter Bradford Cannon in early 1900s, he coined the term. But then if you go study fight or flight now, what's going to happen is you're going to discover polyvagal theory. So that was the big fix that we stumbled in. I'm going, we got to find out about fight or flight. And I go, oh, what's this polyvagal theory? So polyvagal theory, super complicated, but for conflict management, we can just take a couple of points from that thing and it's just going to inform our decision making so much. If you reading his book is tough. It's like so psychologist Stephen Porges developed a theory to explain the workings of the nervous system more accurately. And it's a lot of biology and neuroscience. Like it's brutal to read. I couldn't get through. I was like, I almost had to read it and not understand it and then just take the salient points. But so here's a salient point for us. The nervous system has a mind of its own. Like, so your nervous system is like your second mind. And Porges calls that neural perception, neuroception. Your neuroception makes decisions about your physiological state in response to perceived levels of safety. So right now, when you're sitting there thinking, okay, Gary's talking, whatever. Your neuroception is thinking, is it safe? Like, are things safe right now? It's scanning the environment for safety. Now, one of the things about neuroception is one of the keys to our survival as a species. So it's a fantastic thing. Like the fact that we're here right now is because of neuroception. But we have to remember in the social environment, neuroception is fallible and it's influenced by stress levels, okay? So your nervous system wants to keep you safe and it's gonna make decisions and it's gonna do that by, it's going to do that by making choices about your physiological state. Say that again. Yeah. In order to keep you safe, it makes choices about your physiological state. So there are 3 physiological states that Porges identifies. There's social engagement, there's fight, flight, and there's freeze. When we first discovered this theory, I was more interested in fight, flight. I was reading about social engagement, like what's social engagement? That's just when things are normal and everything's fine. But what we really found out was social engagement is kind of the key to everything. If you understand social engagement, it's really going to help you with conflict. So, okay. So one of the things with social engagement, it's like when you're calm and you feel safe, you can socially, you can connect with people. So some of the things are, you can experience joy, you can be in the present moment, you can have groundedness, you can have curiosity and openness, you have compassion, you're mindful. This is the state ideally you would be in when people confront you and you diffuse the threat. Like when there's a conflict, you diffuse it in a social engagement. So one of the things we noticed was in other books that we read, the tactics for dealing with conflict, they're all trying to trigger the social engagement system. Like, you need to do this, you need to do this. I go, oh, all those things are going to trigger social engagement. So one of the things of social engagement that we discovered was you can trigger it with your sending the message of safety. And there's a bunch of different cues. There's about 4 of them, but I'm just going to talk about 2 so I don't overwhelm you. The safety cues are your facial expression and your vocal tone. Okay, like we are nuts as being out in the world and looking at facial expressions and vocal tone. Now we just go out everywhere and you go, oh, look at their face, look at their face. Oh, listen to their tone. So facial expression is you want to have a lifted, to trigger social engagement in other people, you want to have a lifted mask. So in music, you sing in your mask, that's this part of your face, you want it lifted. And then we always say, think about if you want to make a baby smile. So look at the little baby, like, oh, the little baby, like the little mask, it's just lifted, right? And the really weird thing, well, okay, the next thing is vocal tone. And we say, think about, listen to how people talk when they talk to their dog. Like, people really trigger social engagement in their dog intuitively. They're like, hey boy, how you doing? You're my good dog. Oh yeah, look at you, come here. Oh yeah, you want to play? That, like, if you notice too, my mask is lifted when I'm talking that way. And we just do it naturally with dogs. One of the things that Porges says is there'll be dads where they talk to their dogs like, how's my favorite dog? You just love me. You're my little dog, don't you? And then they're with their kids are like, you got to clean that room right now, mister. I'm telling you. Rah, rah, rah. So like Porges says that people will use the mellifluous vocal tone with the dog, but then when they're kids, they'll use like a low predatory vocal tone and you don't even think about it. So those are really good cues for social engagement. So social engagement is the way to go. And we didn't even know social engagement was a thing. We used it sometimes, but we didn't know it was a thing. This is a game changer. When someone comes at you hot, you want to lift your mask and you want to go, oh, is everything okay? When that doesn't work, so you want your nervous system, ideally when your nervous system decides to do it, that's a good thing. If you do that and it doesn't diffuse the threat, the next decision that your nervous system can make is fight flight. So when social engagement fails to diffuse the threat, or you're just stressed out, the nervous system will choose the fight flight response. Okay? So you're down in social engagement, it doesn't work, it doesn't diffuse the threat, you go up into fight flight. And so what do we know of all the traits? You can have rage, anger, irritation, frustration, panic, fear, anxiety. So you know, fight flight is your body is creating tension and it's preparing you to either fight, to physically fight, or run away. You're going to engage in some kind of, what do they say? You're going to engage in violence or run away from violence. And fight, flight in nature is fantastic. You want to have this function when you're in the natural environment. If you're in the forest and an animal attacks you, you want to go into fight, flight. That's a good thing. One of the problems with fight flight, though, is it compromises your high level cognition. So with my students, I'll come to work in the morning and a student will do something stupid and I'll be rested up and I'll do total social engagement, like, oh, what if we work it out this way? What if we do this? And then I'll solve the problem. I'll go, wow, that was like what a adult I was in that situation. That was like a perfect response. Flash forward to 7 o'clock at night, I've had all these stressful events. A student will come in, do the exact same thing. My nervous system is so stressed out and tired, it will choose fight or flight. And I'll go, what is wrong with you? I'll use a bad vocal tone. What's wrong with you? Why can't you stay? And I go, oh, I just went into fight or flight and that's always bad. I really had to train myself. Now, when I go into fight or flight, I go, no, 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 get back to social engage, Gary. So when you go into fight or flight, it compromises your decision. So you make dumb choices. One of the things when people don't comply with the police, like you'll see someone getting arrested and they go, why doesn't he just comply? It's going, his nervous system chose fight or flight, and that compromises decision-making. Like, it's a bad idea to run away or fight with the cops. And I'm sure those people who get beaten up and go to jail, if you asked him after that, like, yeah, it was a bad idea to run away, but the nervous system was making the decision. And I'll listen to people talk about that and I go, oh, you don't understand that the role of the nervous system, how powerful it is. Okay, so that's the bad thing of fight flight when it comes to conflict, is you're going to make bad decisions. The next response, the next choice that your nervous system has is the freeze response. So when Porges says when escape is not an option, the nervous system will choose the freeze response. Okay, so let's see here. So freeze is basically body collapse, immobility, disassociation, numbness, depression, just shut down. A really good one is the possum playing dead. That's freeze in nature. I wonder if I can find, let's see. Okay, so we found this. Okay, so this is David Livingston. He was in Africa, and there was a man-eating lion that was like eating people in the villages wherever he was. So he goes, okay, I'm going to go out and kill that lion. I'm going to kill that man-eater. So he shoots the lion, and then the lion attacked him, and then one of the other guys that was with him shot the lion, and it saved his life. So here's what he wrote, and then I'm going to try to do this multimedia. This is where I'm the producer, the technology person. So here we go, read along.
Sort of freedom in which there was no sense of pain nor feeling of terrible. I was quite conscious of all that was happening. It was like what patients partially under the influence of chloroform describe. They see the operation but do not feel the knife. This placidity is probably produced in all animals killed by the carnivore, and if so is a merciful provision of the Creator for lessening the pain of death, David Livingston.
Yeah, I don't know, that wasn't so great. But anyway, so he was attacked and basically he went into the freeze response, and basically you just go numb. So Porges says that's what you do when you can't escape. You go from fight or flight into that response. So you're in fight or flight and you can't escape from the tiger, and then you go in and you just start to shut down. So one of the things, so Porges always says escape is not an option. Well, we identified another kind of freeze response. I've just noticed this in myself, and this was my way of dealing with the fight-flight response. My first semester as a teacher, I had a student threaten to beat me up. Like I'm outside of the classroom, he threatens to beat me up. And so I went into fight or flight. I threw my backpack on the ground and I go, okay, let's fight. Come on, let's go. So I met his aggression with aggression. And then luckily for me, he left. So, because had I fought with him, I would have got fired and I wouldn't have had my career. So that's a bad strategy. We do not recommend you do that if you're a teacher and people threaten to beat you up. So what I ended up doing is I would freeze instead. And freezing would be, I'm in the classroom and a student makes me super mad and I want to fight with them. But what I would do is rather than fight with them or leave, I would just use tension to control it. And the nice thing about that is I wouldn't escalate the conflict, but I'm still freezing. But what I did was I would internalize physical tension. So that's really bad. So once I recognized that that's what I was doing, and then I would just automatically do it. I would just feel myself, I kind of tense, and I would almost go to the point, I'd use tension to freeze, but I wouldn't quite go into the disassociation part. But so I would do that, and then I realized I was doing it, and I had to say to myself, no, just relax. Don't do anything, but do it in a relaxed state. So that was the big thing. So those are the three choices of your nervous system. So there we go. So awareness of the polyvagal system. Your nervous system has a mind of its own. It makes decisions about your physiological state based on safety. The three choices are social engagement, fight, flight, and freeze. In the social environment, social engagement is optimal. That's the best response. And the way that once you start building your awareness of these responses, you can actually control them better. So when I go into fight or flight right now, I know it. I instantly go, oh, you just went into fight or flight. You need to calm down and get back into social engagement. And then I'll start using my vocal tone and doing whatever. But when I didn't know, I was just being reactive. Like, I want to punch that person in the face right now. Oh my God. My nervous system was just controlling my behavior. So that's one of the things you can do. You can just go into the world and just notice the choices that your nervous system makes. That will be really good. That will be good not just for conflict, but just for living your life in general. So that's the awareness section. In the next section, Lynn is going to talk about a choice choices that this awareness makes. So you increase your awareness, and we want it to inform our decision making. What are some decisions that we can make? Go, Lynn.
Hi. Okay, so we're not super high tech, so I'm going to kind of point to Gary when I need this slide to move along. And so what I really want to emphasize is that if conflict is having a negative impact on your life or draining your energies off, deciding that you're going to respond tactfully or strategically is going to be really helpful, because we all would rather be calm and make good decisions than not. So how do we do that? So we came up with a framework within measured response to help us stay in social engagement if we are having to confront somebody. And again, the big idea is to assume the role of the calm helper using your vocal tone and your facial expression, because you're going to trigger social engagement in yourself and hopefully in the other person as well. And so it's a 3-part process that we came up with to help people manage conflict. Step 1, you're going to analyze, you're going to figure out what's going on, why are they upset, what can I do? Then from that information, you're going to respond, and you want to do that you want tactics to do that. And so we came up with some specific actions that you can tie to your ideas. And then the final step is to reflect on any type of conflict that you have so that you can learn from it. And again, it's a practice, so we're always learning. And then we also want to let it go, because if we hold on to stuff, that doesn't do us any good either. And so if we learn from things, we can move on. Today, I'm going to specifically talk about step 1, analyze. All right, so in step 1, remember, you want to be calm and centered. And so you want to have some actions that you can choose from. And so the first thing you're going to do if someone confronts you is, we say, ask clarifying questions. And if someone's coming, like I said, coming at you very aggressively, maybe with an angry line of questions, it's perfectly fine for you to say, who are you? What's going on? Really trying to determine what's going on, because that's enabling you to then kind of center yourself and stay calm, again, with the idea of making those good decisions. You want to identify emotional appeals, and you want to compare frames. So let's talk about the clarifying questions. I kind of skipped onto that part when I was doing it. But again, it's like we call them the what questions in school. Again, what's going on? Who are you? And that's why I would really use my vocal time, like, oh, is everyone okay? Are you safe? What's going on? So the next part is to identify emotional appeals. And I'm going to let Gary explain what we mean by emotional appeals.
Okay, so we're doing our thing and we're looking at stuff and we don't know what we're doing, but then we're watching the behavior of people and we're going, oh, these people are doing emotional manipulation patterns to get what they want. And then we call them emotional manipulation patterns. I'm going, oh, this is classical rhetoric that they're using. They're like ethos, pathos, and logos. They're relying on pathos to manipulate in the same way that the rhetoricians of old, when they would do their speeches, they would do pathos, which is emotional appeals. That's what these people are doing when they're confronting us. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. 2,000 years later, that everyone's still intuitively using the same persuasive techniques. And the thing is it an unethical persuasion? That's what you have to figure out.
So knowing the emotional appeals really informs your situational awareness, and we've identified 3. The first one we call the victim, and that person is working to stir feelings of pity and guilt and obligation in you. And it's really playing to our sense to be cooperative and helpful, which is what we know most people want to be, or their goal is to be, and that sometimes accommodations are appropriate and necessary. And then what we say with each of the appeals is you want to determine the validity of the appeal, like how much should they be influencing you with this. And one of the ways we tell the validity with the victim is how willing is the other person to cooperate and compromise when we have offered a reasonable accommodation. So that's the first one. The next one we call the critic. And the critic's goal is to create self-doubt in you. And the effectiveness of the critic comes from the power of shame and embarrassment, because we know that people are much more easily manipulated if they feel insecure. And what I used to tell a lot of people is just because someone says something doesn't mean it's true. You don't have to react to it. And then we would also really look with the critic is what triggered their criticism. Was it a misunderstanding? Was it simple human error? And so you're really, before you're manipulated by the critic, you want to think like, what's going on here? And we would look at it that way. And the final one.
And can I say something?
Yes.
One of the things with a critic that I really notice about the critic pattern is I'll have students where I mispronounce their names and they'll go into critic mode. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Mispronouncing, an honest mispronouncing of someone's name is not worthy of your criticism. Like, stop, 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 stop. That's a thing of the measured response where you know, like, oh yeah, that's just manipulation on their part. They just want to make you feel bad. Okay.
Okay. So the final one is we call the fear monger. And then this type is definitely not sending you the message of safety. And so they're really triggering your nervous system and compromising your cognitive thought. So they usually brandish anger and make verbal threats. They're implying that what you've done is so bad that they can push the social limits. And again, it makes it really hard to self-regulate when someone's doing this. And they really, the validity of this is if there's a safety concern, if they need you to get out of the street because a car is coming. So those are the three. What we've noticed about the three patterns is that people will cycle through these three emotional appeals if they're not getting what they want. And there's probably others, but these are the ones that we see the most in any type of conflict that we have. And then again, out in the world, I see them all the time, especially we tend to have to wait longer in lines now to get places, and you really see people working the emotional appeals. I feel bad for people who have to work with the public at this point because they are really having a lot of people come at them. And so again, knowing these patterns, they can't hijack your emotions and compromise your thinking. And then the final step in analyzing, the final component of analyzing the conflict, and know that it's not an exact science, this can all be going on together, is to compare frames. So what I'm talking about now is in part 2 of the book. And in part 1 of the book, just as we explained the role of the polyvagal theory and fight or flight, we also talk about something called the framing effect. And a narrative frame is a story that you create in your mind about an event or a situation. And what I realized early in looking at conflict was you better have a frame, because the person who's coming at you, they will definitely have a frame. So you want to think, what is my frame? What do I know to be true? What are the decisions I want to make? And again, you want to be making those from a centered, calm position. So you want to make those better decisions based on your frame. And in part 1, we also reference the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, who says that humans are by nature narrow framers. And we talk about like things that were ahas for us. Like I used to think I would give people all this information and they wouldn't change their mind. They would still be mad. But then what we realize is that people don't want to ignore evidence that doesn't support their frame. And we call that motivated reasoning. And so you start to learn more about kind of what's going on with the other person as well as what's going on with you. And that really helps you not take conflict personally. So basically that's step 1 of practicing a measured response. And it's not an exact science, but your brain can handle it. So you're going to assume the role of the calm helper, again, using your vocal tone and facial expression. And that's to trigger social engagement in yourself and in the other person. You think a go-to strategy, because sometimes I'll freeze if someone's gets combative with me. I noticed I would freeze. And so now I think, oh, I just need to ask questions like, what's going on? And then again, I could have my emotions hijacked. And now I go into pattern recognition. Oh, they want this. Can I help them? Do they deserve an accommodation? And then I would really look at the frames. What do they want? Can I help them? Or do they just want something that I can't give them? Or are they being unreasonable or unethical to get what they want?
Okay, so that's it. That's overview of using awareness and choice. And the whole idea is you're managing confrontation by giving you some structure to the chaos that is conflict. Whenever people are conflicting with you, they're trying to create chaos to their advantage. And what if you, as you can see, you were applying structure to that chaos. That's going to help you self-regulate and make better decisions. So you're going to have awareness of your nervous system's autonomic responses. That's a big bang for your buck, just knowing that. And it's just the three: social engagement, fight, flight, and freeze. Like right now, everyone, if you're sitting there, hopefully you're in social engagement. You're calm and you feel safe and you're going, oh, okay. If people are going to do questions and answers, we would be in social engagement. We'll do presentations where we have people start being really mean and they're going, oh my God, they're going in fight or flight. So being able to identify that really helps. And then the last thing, so that's awareness, and then there's choice. And the choice that you make is when people confront you, you're going to go in analysis mode. You're going to start breaking it down. You're going to ask questions. You're going to identify emotional appeals. You're going to look at their story and your story. And then that's going to inform your decision making in responding to the conflict. So that's our presentation. We can take questions now. Janice?
Well, thank you very much, Gary and Lynn. And there are some messages in chat. Okay, Sue, you're muted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning. I've really enjoyed this because it added so much dimension to my analysis of conflict. So I found one time that I was dealing with a realtor, and just when I was about to make a decision with her about using her services after she had shown me many properties, my friend called, and so I left the room and I discussed with him. He says, you don't need to work with her. I can help you with this. So just tell her that you don't need her services. So I went back to the room and told her this, and she was pretty irate that after all the time she had spent with me, that I was not going to use the services. So at that point, I froze, and I see that happen many times. It's totally had nothing to say, couldn't think, and just didn't know how to get out of that feeling. So what tools do you suggest in how to stop freezing? Of course, I think you said to relax, but that wasn't like the thing I could do at that time.
Lynn, you want to take that?
Sure, I'll do that because I do that too. And so what I really learned again is I wouldn't necessarily ask her questions. I would just tell her, I'm so sorry that you're it wasn't my intention to upset you. Thank you for trying to help me. And just, again, that calm vocal tone and that acknowledgement, I can see why you feel bad. And then some people, they're just going to go away mad. Like, you just have to know. So now I just always go like, I'm so sorry that you feel that way. And I really try to just stay calm and not let their anger trigger me. But of course, there's that level of our body that's just going to be triggered by that. So once I even had my throat closed completely up, like dealing with an angry parent at school, and I thought, gosh, I can't even talk. And I was in my mind, I knew the answer, but my body was just totally reacting. So just give yourself time and space, and just say, oh, I'm so sorry.
One of the things
that's all you can do. And just realize that some people are just going to go away mad.
One of the things I noticed when we were doing this was the recovery time was quicker. So you're never going to get rid of your emotional feelings. Like when they trigger those emotions, and you don't even want to. You want to have your emotional responses because it's not always the social environment. Stuff's going to happen. But I really noticed that, like, when you do the pattern recognition and you just sit there and you go to the pattern, what's going on? What just happened in that interaction? Why is that woman doing that? Your recovery is faster. What would make me upset for a week after a bad interaction? I want to say in a couple hours, like, okay, I've got back to self-regulation. Like when you have those bad things and you feel really bad, it's going, your recovery gets faster when you inform your awareness.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Sue. But this is a chat question from Lydia Chu, and she asks, how do you apply this when Trump allies believe what they do?
Okay, well, one of the things when you have a measured response, what I'm so much like, when people come at me that way, I know I'm not going to change their mind. So that's really freeing for me. So when people make an obvious misstatement about reality, it sends the message of danger to you. So you get really where you want to go, no, that's not true. But I'm at the point now, or I'd want to change their mind. When those people, I'm not going to change their mind. One of the things we say when someone says that, you just go, oh, I disagree. And then you move on, you get away. I actually have a friend he's a Donald Trump guy, and he'll bring up Donald Trump and I just go, oh, okay, yeah. Like I don't give it any traction. And then he moves on and then he's back to my normal friend, not that like Donald Trump, like he's a big fan. I'll just go, oh yeah, like I won't give it any traction. But that's the thing of having awareness of going, well, you're not going to change their mind. If you know that, you're not baited into it. So yeah, so that question, now that I'm talking, I would say, don't take the bait. How do you deal with a Donald Trump person when they say those things? You don't take the bait. Like, what are they saying to you that you have to respond to? Are they going to take something from you or do something in the moment that you have to respond to? If they're just saying stuff, you just go, oh, okay.
Good advice. I would like to remind everyone, guess I'll put my camera on, that in 2 weeks, we have another Eclectics from our regular series, and the title is The Challenges and Opportunities in Computer Hardware. And I know you all want to hear that because it may be 4 hours long. I don't know, but at any rate, I'm just kidding. We also have introduced a new eclectic series entitled OLLI-Diversity, and those presentations are scheduled on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. And our first presentation this semester is on the 20th of January with our speaker, Natalie Graham, who is heading up our new Institute for Black Intellectual Innovation, and I guarantee you it will be an interesting perspective for us. So if there are no other questions, I think we'll close this session unless you have some final words, Lynn and Gary.
No, just thank you everyone for joining us today, and Janice, thank you for hosting us.
You're very, very welcome. We're very pleased to have you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks,
Goodbye.
Janice.
Goodbye, everyone. We'll see you either next week or in 2 weeks or both.